Well, as I'm sure most of you know, the purpose of this channel is for an old dog like me to try some new tricks. Now, it may not be a new trick, but it is new to me, so I'm willing to give it a shot. If it helps my painting, fantastic. Now, I couldn't find zenithal primer, so I am using this brand instead. All right, so here we go. Trying out the new method everybody's talking about on YouTube. Got my mini loaded. I don't think it's supposed to be like that. I'm going to have to do some more research. Old dog, new tricks. Ben Mindos, and welcome to my channel. It's been a while, yes, but you know, life happens. Maybe I'll cover that in another video sometime. But today I'm going over my experimentation with the aptly named slap chop method, as given to us by Rob, the Honest Wargamer. To start with, I do know that zenithal primer is not a brand. That was a joke, hence the disclaimer at the beginning of this video. Zenithal priming is basically, from my understanding, use a black undercoat and then dry brush with a gray, medium gray primer over some of the main parts. And then what I like to do personally, just to give it some detail, is I'll take a bright white primer and dry brush from the top down. That way the tops of everything is getting more of the highlight. It gives it a little bit extra layer and some you know, color and shading. Where I started with this is I'm running a campaign for Ravenloft, and my players are getting ready to go up against some werewolves. And I figured, what better way to test this out than do a bunch of werewolves for my crew? So I started with 2 of the WizKids werewolf models, which I'm not real thrilled with. I wasn't thrilled with the sculpt, and the primering that came with it wasn't all that great. So I reprimered it so I can do the slap chop method properly. Unfortunately, the video for those did not turn out. So I'm starting with the second batch of werewolves, which I downloaded from Epic Miniatures on My Mini Factory. Great website, I highly recommend it. Prices are reasonable, and man, they've just got some great stuff. A lot of artists who are actually fans and gamers, you can just tell. Printing those off with my Anycubic Mono 4. Yes, I did get a 3D printer. That was another video, or going to be another video. But yeah, I've been having a lot of fun with it. I've been printing like crazy, as my wife can tell you. And yeah, it's just a great investment. So I printed those off, and it took me a couple of tries because there were some parts that were a bit fragile that I didn't need actually on the Mini, so I just kind of popped them off and kit bashed it a different way. But as far as the contrast paints, I use the Army Painter Speed Paint. I also used Army Painter Primer and a Vallejo Gray Primer. And I'm using Citadel Contrast. And I kind of wanted to mix and match. I didn't want to go with one specific brand just because I didn't want to test one over the other. I kind of want to find what I like. It's like what my paint collection. I get Citadel, I get Vallejo, I get Army Painter. I don't have a specific brand that I like more than the others, but I like what I use, and if it turns out great, great. If not, it goes on the side shelf, and I'd probably never use it again. Some of the other things, and you'll see at the end of this video, that I did paint, I used the Hippokin Captain from Gloomy Kid, also on My Mini Factory. I used, I call him Tiny, but he's considered a hippo folk from Loot Studios. Their September, I believe it was, Loot was unofficial Spelljammer themed, and since I've got another Spelljammer campaign going alongside my Ravenloft campaign, I had to pick some of those up. I did grab another one, a Hippo Soldier with sword, as it is described, from Epic Miniatures. Again, great company, great models, love it, can't get enough of it. I did a couple more, which I will show at the end and not give out any spoilers. My thoughts on the slap chop technique. It is a lifesaver. I'll be the first to tell you that I really don't like the way I paint. Everybody around me tells me I do just fine, but hey, I'm overly critical of myself, as most people can be. This does speed things along. I'm able to cover large areas in a fair amount of time, getting the detail that I would like to do, which normally I would spend hours and hours and hours on. But it allows me to speed up the process. And am I using Slapshot exclusively like some other content creators? Absolutely not. I'm not that great. I can't compete with some of that. It takes me a lot longer. Well, what you see them do in 15 minutes usually takes me about an hour, which is fine. Hour is much better than 10 hours, which is what I've been spending on some of my other minis. So this is definitely going to be a lifesaver for me. Is it forgiving? Not very much. If you really don't pay attention and you get slop over on another area that you're going to use contrast with a different color, it does not look very well. A lot of times you'll have to either reprimer it with some white or go back over it with some similar match colored paint, which is what I did in a lot of the aftermath with some of these. I also go back and do all the detail, because the one thing the Slapshot does not do is metallics. I have not come across any metallics that work in the Slapshot method, so there is going to be some detail after the fact. One of the things that I did discover later on when I was doing the Hippokin, I kind of scoffed at the speed paint version of white, thinking, how can you get a white in a speed paint version? Well, I bought it, Army Painter white, and I tried it, and you know what? Damn, it really did work. You'll see it on some of the Hippokin. It really did turn out nice. So I'm going to be using a lot of that further on in some of my other painting experiences. So that's enough of me talking. Why don't we get into some moments of zen and just watch me paint and listen to some music. Okay, so here are the end results. This is one of the WizKid minis that I painted. I actually enjoyed painting the hand. The flesh for contrast paint, speed paint turned out really, really well. Again, I did have to dry brush some of the metallics on there, but you know, overall I think it turned out really, really well. Here's the other WizKid mini that I did try. One thing I did notice and that I do like about the contrast and speed paints, fabrics turn out really, really well. As long as you get some even coats and even strokes on there, you get some very good shadow and highlights. It again saves a lot of time. You'll see in some of the other capes that I have on these guys that it turned out really well. I also picked up some bone colored contrast and speed paint that really, really worked well. Some of the older techniques that I used for bone and whatnot, they all turned out good, but I'm just really impressed with how this one turned out. The other thing I did note that I didn't have to go back over it with a black ink, a wash. Usually I do that to bring out some highlights and details. With the speed paint and everything, I didn't have to do that. So one of the things that you're probably noticing is that I did not get close up to the miniatures. Well, I'm not looking for close-ups. I'm looking for tabletop. That's what I do. That's what I use. I play D&D. I want these miniatures to pop and impress my players. Nobody else. Not even me. But I do enjoy how the speed paint process has made that a lot easier. Here I tried to experiment with some darker colors for the fur. They turned out okay. I'm not totally thrilled with it, but you know, my players really, really liked it. This one's probably my favorite out of all the werewolves just because of the pose and the way I was able to get some of the highlights on there. It kind of gave it more of a canine feel to it, fur being the lighter color and the flesh being the darker color. Here we have an outhouse. Yes, it's an outhouse. Actually, it's two-part. I got this one from Black Skull Studio, also on My Mini Factory. Anybody with a 3D printer, if you haven't checked out My Mini Factory, definitely do it. It's worth it. Here's the other part. Ooh, spooky. The Mimic Outhouse. I was trying to find the WizKid version forever. I have never been able to place my hands on it because it's always sold out no matter where I go. So you know what? I make my own. I think this one turned out pretty good. I can't wait to build a base for it where I can swap out the two main minis and still have the same base. I have yet to decide where I'm going to throw that at my players yet, but they're going to love it nonetheless. Here we go with the Hippokin. This is the one that I pulled down from Epic Miniatures, the Hippokin with sword, or Hippo Soldier with sword, my apologies. That one turned out good. I love the blue. The blue contrast paints really worked well. I believe these were the Army Painter ones. As you can see on the leggings, that is the Army Painter white speed paint. That also turned out very well. This is the Hippogriff Captain, which I got from Gloomy Kid. This one actually comes pre-supported, and if you have a 3D printer, you know what I'm talking about. The supports can be a major pain in the butt, especially when you're dealing with Hero Forged minis, which I discovered. But having a pre-supported mini like this definitely helps. Note to any of you 3D artists out there, please add supports to them. And this is tiny. This one came from Loot Studios, and I'm really impressed with the way it turned out. This one's probably my favorite out of all the Hippokin. And I'm going to be using him over and over and over again. Well, that's about it for me. I'm out of time. Thank you to everybody who participated. Rob, the Honest Wargamer, for coming up with a great video. And as always, they ain't going to paint themselves.